Good morning, everyone. Can you able to hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Okay, yeah. So today I will show you how to deploy a sample life flow in CPI. Okay. So after understanding the the something how to do that in CPI, then in the next session we'll discuss about the architecture. Then you will understand more easily. Okay. So today we'll discuss how to deploy a sample life flow in CPI. So as we discussed in the beginning class, so where do we go and develop the iFlow from the scratch? Is it in a discovery or a design? It is in a design section, right?
Design.
Yeah. So in the design section, we start using configuring the iFlow or developing the new iFlow that we will build in design section. So the package that we have created is here. And here, just click on edit and say outbound communication. So this is our sample iFlow that we have created. So we will use the same iFlow to start developing the iFlow from scratch. Okay, so by default, you will get these three components. So when you created a new iFlow, then by default you can see these three components. Left side showing sender, and in the middle integration process, and on the right is the receiver system. So here the components are not on the same system, right? Sender is a different system and it is in a different place. For example, you are sending the data from Europe to the Asia, so uh, the physical locations are also as different, right? So sender system somewhere in Germany, from there the CPI which is hosting in another data center, let's say Australia. So from there the receiver system is in another different country in Singapore. So when physically these are in different locations, but when it comes to the integration, you are putting on the same screen and navigating by using the connectors, right? So that is a technology that they have used. So from the sender to integration process, and from the integration process to receiver, we will configure by using adapters to connect from one system to another system, right? So the configuration that we are going to perform in CPI is in graphical way. Okay, so no need to look at in different way of or different style of configuration um, is more complex than just you using graphical way. So therefore, this is the best way to use and configure the iFlow by just using drag and drop, right? So the white canvas that you are looking at, for example, on the front you are seeing one sender integration to receiver 3. You are seeing on the background on which color is a white color. Hmm? So the white color canvas that what you are seeing there, that is a foundation. That is in a foundation framework. That is a foundation framework that is called Apache Camel Foundation. So based on that foundation, the CPI that was uh, built by using the Camel Foundation framework. So that is why when we deploy the iFlow, see, when you are executing that iFlow, when we want to execute any application, what we need a runtime environment, right? So the Camel Foundation will produce or support the runtime environment, whatever the application that we are executing in CPI. Just click on edit. So now on the left hand side, you are seeing that, right, list of applications here. So these are all list of applications that we call it as a palette. Okay. So all the functionalities, whatever I have described in the design section, of the course content. If you just have a look at the course content, whatever the list of functions that are appearing, all are part of this palette. Okay. So in this palette, all the functions of CPI that is available, and based on that we will select one and we can put it there. So that will happen through just drag and drop. Okay. So now let's try to understand the white canvas side, right? So the white canvas, what I told you is nothing but Apache Camel Foundation, right? So what is Camel Foundation? Basically, the Camel Foundation is a framework that is open source. Okay, so in the cloud environment, when they wanted to develop any middleware technologies, it is more suitable to support the runtime environment. So that is the reason SAP is also decided to use this Camel Foundation. That Camel Foundation was built based on the Java code. So that is why you can see sometimes errors of Java as well. And on the CPI, when we this configured for the applications that what we are executing in CPI, it has to be compatible with the environment, runtime environment of Camel Foundation as well. For example, if you go back to so I just wanted to show you the slide where the Camel Foundation and the CPI interlinked in this product. Okay, so the white canvas, once you click on it, in the bottom you are seeing the integration flow, right? So once you click on the white canvas, so wherever you click on the white canvas, the integration flow will appear. So what this tab all about? It is about the environmental setup, right? Generally, when we have a system properties to be configured, same way this tab or the integration flow, these tabs are supporting the system side, meaning on the CPI side. Okay, so the first one is the name. So the name and ID. What is the difference between both? So name is nothing but a iFlow name that you can give some space and describe it. But when it comes to the ID, there will be no space in the word. It will be taken strictly to use in the definition of without spaces or extra characters. So the ID which we use, the CPI, this is a technical ID. Okay, so this is a technical ID that will be interlinked with the camel foundation when we deploy that any application. And also this technical ID is very important when we wanted to use or call any other iFlow within that in the future, right? So that is called a technical ID. And the next tab it shows is a runtime configuration. Why runtime configuration? Because the runtime environment is different than CPI, so the configuration has to be supportive before executing any application, right? So for that here, if you look at product profile, obviously is a cloud platform integration, then the namespace mapping. So if you have a different namespace mapping when we want to connect any different systems, for example, you are connecting to a different non-SAP system, when you are connecting it and you wanted to, if the namespaces are different, then you wanted to describe the particular namespaces which are different, you have to be mentioned here. So what is the namespaces? The namespace is nothing but the path of the variable, whatever you are defined, right? So those variables you have to be specify accordingly. So therefore, it will be understand CPI exceptionally to understand to process it. Otherwise, it will throw an error. I load headers and HTTP session. So if you have anything to enter about these headers of the namespace, then only we can give. Otherwise, we just left blank. Error configuration for exceptions. We have some exceptions for the errors. So if any exceptions happens, then we can use error configuration. Then the next tab is important thing is resources. What is that? Mean resources. So the resources meaning you can use it so the resources tab here whatever the physical files that we are using for the iFlow, so those all physical files are appeared under resources tab. For example, message mapping. So you have created the message mapping. So there is a file that will be created physically, right? So same thing script created. So all the files that are used in the iFlow, for example, mapping, or you are creating the schema like XSD or EDMX or WSDL or the script. So whatever you are created in the iFlow, so those files are available under the resources tab. What is the use? If they provide resources, this is given a very advantage because the physical file, the same thing can be you wanted to use, download, or the files that you wanted to be adjusted while executing the iFlows. So all the available the files are available at one place. So whenever we wanted to to fix that error by adjusting that any physical files, so we just come here and download it and check that code. If the code is correct, then we will upload it again. Okay, so this is very supportive functionality resources. And the next is the externalized parameters. Any idea from anyone what is externalized parameters? Yeah. So the externalized parameters is nothing but the external parameters. So external parameters are like when you wanted to create, when you wanted to create a new selection screen before executing any iFlow, right? So those parameters are those fields you want to uh, you want to process it as an input values in order to execute that iFlow. That parameters you will define it under externalized parameter section. Okay, so for example, I will tell you one scenario. For example, you want to you want to define the country code, okay, and also you wanted to define a specific company code of that iFlow. So when you given a specific company code, so in the selection screen, right? So only the data will be picked up uh, by choosing the specific country. So other country data won't be visible, okay, because you have selected the specific country and also specific company code. So all these input values, whatever you wanted to specify it, so that all are we called as a parameters and defined it under externalized parameters. Next step, problems. So once you prepared the iFlow, and obviously you will find some errors, right? So where do we go and see all the errors if you wanted to see? So here is the place called errors tab. Under that, either warnings or the errors, both are visible under this tab. For example, one of that is start event should have an incoming flow. So here is the location. So these all problems will be displayed here. So these are the common tabs that will be appeared you know, in the white canvas section. So if you wanted to click on an integration flow of these tabs, you just click on background of anywhere in the white canvas. Therefore, you can get into this. Okay. So now let me show you here. You can see on this slide. So there are two different systems here. On the left hand side is the way we are dealing the CPI on the front end, and right hand side the way it is connected and the way it is uh, set up the system in the background. Okay, so to know much more on this, let's start this one. So when you have a customer, right, the customer wanted to subscribe or to get that license of the CPI. So when he approaches the SAP, first SAP will create an account for that customer. Okay, so if the customer want two tenants, two different CPI tenants, then each tenant will create one account. So each account has one tenant in other way. So if they want a multiple tenants, they have to create the multiple accounts, because each tenant will have maintained that account that you can see it, the account ID. Okay. Under the tenant, obviously the tenant will have two different nodes. One is a tenant management node, another one is a runtime node. Tenant management node is nothing but an administrative part, and runtime node is simply execute the task. So when you are executing an application, right? So that application required some processes to execute it. Right? So these processes in Camel Foundation uh, to understand is like a virtual missions. The Java virtual missions is nothing but the particular node which one is executing it. That will be a specific virtual missions that is possible to interlink it with the foundation. Right? So when any customer wanted to get that license, the first one is the SAP will create that account. Each one tenant will have one account. If there are 5 tenants, 5 different accounts, and each tenant will have 2 nodes as per the architecture, and these are having uh, it will execute that application to support their by supporting the processes, right? So that is the thing that you are seeing on the left hand side. So that even you can see on the front end, right? You can see the front end of the tenant management node, runtime node, right? So virtual machine of the account ID, all these things. But on the right hand side, um, there is a camel foundation. That's what I will show you on the white canvas, right? So that is nothing but the camel foundation. So this camel foundation will be linked with the runtime node, which is the execution of the iFlow. Mm. So again, if you go to detail about the Camel Foundation, the Camel Foundation is also using the different technology. Like we are using drag and drop. So drag and drop means whatever you are just dragging and putting it, automatically the code is going to be adjusted. So that model or that methodology is called as a BPMN, business process uh, mm, business process maintaining, right? So there is a technology methodology that they are using called a BPMN design. So this BPMN will to understand the way you put on the drag and drop, that will be easily to understand, and you can able to configure it accordingly. Okay. So this part is also uh, is part of a Camel Foundation, and the code is processed through XML format. And when we wanted to deploy any iFlow, that will be deployed even using Foundation. Indirectly that is deployed in even Camel Foundation. Okay, now let's start to configure it, the this iFlow. So the first one is the sender system, right? So keep it a sender system like that, and coming to the right hand side. Right hand side, what you're seeing, the receiver system. So now I wanted to.
Your voice is very low.
Voice is very low. Can you check now? Is it better?
Yeah, it's not okay.
Huh? Better? Is it better?
Yes, it's better now.
Hello, Jagdish. Is it
Yeah, it's better now, sir. Sometimes it's very low. Now it's better.
okay? Okay. So whenever you feel low, just let me know. Okay. So now, from CPI to receiver, we will configure the adapter. Okay. So how do you configure it? Let's see. First, you just select on the end. So when you're clicking on the end, you're seeing that arrow mark, right? Arrow mark is nothing but a connector, the direction. So the way you wanted to take the direction, that will be go. So if you are moving from left to right, the direction going in that way. So now you have selected on the receiver system. So now the pop-up box appeared. It will show all the list of adapters here. So these are the adapters that are available in order to configure from CPI to receiver system, right? So as an example, we first select the mail adapter, okay, just to show you a basic thing. Here is the mail adapter. So once we select that mail adapter, we need to configure the details of the mail connections, right? So first tab is showing a general tab where you can see the general details. So here I can say description, this adapter is using for mail. Okay. Then the next tab is the connection details. So obviously this tab is more important because this is the connection details that we are using that. Right? So the first one is the address. Address means whatever the exchange that we are using it, the mail exchange server. So we need to update it. In your organization, your company will have the exchange server, right? So that you will provide it. So for our practice, we are using a Gmail. So for the Gmail, what is our exchange server? So this is the address. Okay. And proxy type. So this proxy type field is also important. This mainly this proxy type field will be used when the customer is using cloud connector. Okay. So when the customer will use the cloud connector, so this proxy type will be used. Basically, if the address of the SMTP, if the email address that is located in the on-premise level, then we use this type is a proxy type equal to on-premise. Then we enter the location ID from the cloud connector. But here the Gmail is boxed through internet, so you can just keep it as none. Then the timeout. So you just put the timeout waiting period to be out, number of seconds, milliseconds. And the protection. So there are options here for the protection of the email. So nothing but a SMTP address. How do we protect it? By using SMTPS or mandatory option, just putting SMTPS option. And next is authentication. Authentication means how do you log in? So we can use plain user ID and password. And the next field here is nothing but a credentials name. So this credentials name is having some important in CPI. So you can see this is the credentials name in every flow. So the CPI has created this field called credentials name for the purpose of eliminating the user ID and password to be visible in the adapter level. That means, so the user ID and password we will not use directly here. Rather, we will deploy the user ID and password in the secured area, and we will create a alias name for that. So that alias name will be used here. So we don't update directly any user ID and password in design section. Okay, so in the design section, we will not give at any level, either at the adapter level or within the CPI. So wherever they are showing, we will not update the user ID and password directly, except in secured area. So in the secured area, we will update the user ID and password, and we will create one alias name. So that alias name will be updated here, just to avoid the any hacking of the user and password. Just to protect our data, we just created this field alias name. Okay, so here the email ID, user ID and password to connect the SMTP server we have created in secured area, updated the user ID and password, and that alias name is nothing but just we created one alias name. Then the next section is the mail attributes. So these mail attributes are from address to address of the email that you wanted to create. Okay. So just use from address and to address. Just use the subject. Subject is email connection of text. Okay. Keep it other settings as it is, and the body and what is this code we will discuss later, and the type and the UTF-8 format. Necessity just keep it nice. Okay, so this is the mail adapter that we have configured. Just see how it is easy to configure the adapters. So for other adapters from the list is also following the same pattern. Configuration of the adapter is very much easy in CPI. Okay, because we are not creating any new adapter here. We are just using the adapter what has been already built, set up in CPI. So we have to just configure the adapters. Okay. So now we just configured it. What is the next step? We have to see whether it is correctly configured or not. So for that we have to deploy this IFO, right? So I just put in some message now, some text to understand. I want to right? Some text is updated. In order to deploy this IFO, I just adjusted something now. But so I just save. Then I will click on deploy, which is the tab it's showing here. Just click on deploy. So here is the message that will be displayed. The iFlow successfully deployed. Right? So once it is deployed, what is the next section to go and check? Which section we go and check? whether it is successfully completed or not.
Monitor.
Yeah, exactly. So to go to monitor section and see whether our iFlow is deployed correctly or not. So where we go in this section, is it a monitor message processing or manage integration content or manage security or manage stores or manage logs? So which section we need to go to check?
Message processing.
Message processing? No, not. It is a manage integration content. So my question is not to check the messages. If you say that yeah, the message is successful or not, yes, we need to check under the section called monitor message processing. But here my question is where do we check whether our iFlow is successfully completed or not? That will be checked under manage integration content. So you just click on. So that means whether we deployed, the deployment is correct or not, are throwing any error, that we need to check under manage integration content. So here, for example, our iFlow is this one, outbound communication. What is the status is showing? Started. Sometimes it shows an error also. Okay, so this also we have to check whether the deployment is taken successfully or throwing an error. That we'll have to identify from this section. Okay, so once you click on this iFlow, on the right hand side you can see the details of the deployed by who has deployed, what is the technical ID, what is the version, right, when it was deployed. All that details will be shown. Endpoints, if any endpoints are created, the like a URL links, it will show status. The status of the iFlow is showing here. The integration flow is deployed successfully. Otherwise, sometimes it will show an error also. Artifact details, log configuration. This is about the iFlow is deployed or not. But now after that, next step, I wanted to see whether the message is successfully executed or not. Right? That where we'll check? That will be checked in message monitoring section. So go to message monitoring section. So under this section, we will check that messages. So this is about execution of the type flow that will be shown, send the data, right? That will be checked under this monitoring. Whereas the manage integration content where you will check the iFlow is deployed or not. Okay, so here also the status is showing completed. So iFlow is completed successfully. So you can check the logs and you can just click on it. But it's basically just to show you is completed. The status of the iFlow. And the properties of that. Properties like message ID, correlation ID, artifact name. So the technical header lines or the technical details of that iFlow that will be shows under property. So this is the message that is completed. But we have used the mail connector, right? So we wanted to check that email because obviously we will receive an email, right? Because we use the mail adapter and we just updated some message to be executed, right? So we should get an email. So let's go and check the email address. So I have used here the email ID is called ss.intech@gmail.com, and you can see here is the email. So here is that email that we have used here. Just check the subject line and the body section that we have updated some text that is showing here. So this is how did we get this message? Because the mail adapter that we have configured, by using that mail adapter, the CPI we triggered the iFlow to execute. Then the data of the message, right? That is available in the mail section, and you wanted to send for the data as well. It will become in the same pattern. So in the body section, it shows just some text to understand how it runs a sample iFlow. But tomorrow you can see the employee data or some other data that will be flow, right? That you can see. So that is how we will have to be develop the iFlow from just to design to deploy and to check that the file, the output in the email as well. So what are the steps that will be involved here? When you wanted to build an iFlow, right? Or when you wanted to configure an iFlow, what are the steps that needs to be involved? The step one is start developing the iFlow or start configuring the iFlow from design section, right? And make sure that make sure that the integration flow settings, what we have seen in the white canvas section, that has been updated as well. So that is the step one. And the step two, once you prepare that iFlow to configure it, all the components the way you want or as per the requirement you configure it, the next step is to save it. Don't save directly, save as a version. Always it should be saved as a version. If you click on save also it will work, but as per process wise it is a better to maintain as version. Okay. So for every change that you configured or prepared that iFlow, you just give save as version. Okay. Then the third is deploy it. So once you deploy it, then you go to monitor section. Under the monitor section, you have different sections. So the section manage integration content, that you will check it first to see whether our iFlow is deployed correctly or not, because that is most important thing before checking the message. Of course, even though if it is through an error, you can't see any message there. So check that manage integration content, and after that you check the section called message monitor processing. So in the message monitor processing, it will shows whether successfully sent the message or it is failed in the network. So those things that you can cross check and verify it using this section in the monitor section. Okay. Any questions so far from anyone having any doubt or question? Yeah. So that means you understand?
Yes, actually one question. You mentioned that credentials are maintained in secure area. So where do we maintain that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I will show you here. So any any security related user ID or password or any login details which are security related, that has to be updated under the section called manage security. Okay. Again, I'm saying any security related things you have to update in this section. You don't have any other place where you can update it. So under that, the first section called security material. Right? So in this section, here is the table where we updated all our different type of logins, like success factors logins or the mail logins. We have different systems, right? Different adapters. So whatever the login or the user ID that you are using, you have to update your credentials in this section. Okay. For example, what is the credentials name that we have used, alias ID for the email, Gmail user, right? So here is the details, login details about Gmail user. We'll just click on edit, and you can see the name of the credentials name, then the user and password. Of course, password is must. So you can see these details. So the type is the user credentials. Sometimes you need to update the success factor system. Then click on success factors. Some you can have the open connectors of any specific uh, company that is dedicated to the user, and you can use that open connector. So, but any type, any login that you wanted to, to update, you have to. In short, I can say any password relevant things needs to be updated in this table, okay? Because that is how it will be protected. Because if you updated, but in other cloud systems, we directly updated, okay? But security relevant, that is less protective. But because in the security material section, this is protective. In order to access the security material while execution, it will be cross-verified whether we have authorized it or not to check it. So that is why they have given us manage security section as very protective area where you can maintain the user credentials. Anything relevant to the password will be protected under this section. Okay, so the section is called security material.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's good then. In the next session, we will continue to the same iFlow about the sender side as well. Just now we have completed on the receiver side, right? On the sender side also we use another adapter, how, and we can check how it will work. Right? Then we'll start understanding about architecture. Okay, so thank you all. Thanks for your time, and we'll meet you again.
Thank you.
Bye.